Thank you. You're watching Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide. I'm here every day in the afternoons, 3 to 5 Pacific time, and I go over these clips, and some of them are specifically to show you sort of the root of where an argument began, and some are about where it goes to die. You know, we kind of bookend the right-wing conversation about different topics. Our dear friend, Dinesh D'Souza, is chiming in on January 6th. The idea being is that Trump is liable, either criminally or civilly, for what happened on January 6th because of his selling of the big lie and the fact that he doesn't actually believe it, that he's selling this bullshit. And now, you know, Trump obviously has to be all in on this lie because it's the only thing he's got as a defense in Georgia. Because if it comes out and it's shown that he was aware that he lost, that he admitted that he lost, he knew it was true, and that the evidence coming in was bullshit, and that he was just manipulating people to try and maintain power, that he's criminally liable in Georgia. And if he can prove or at least skate on the idea that people think he's actually stupid enough to buy the bullshit that Giuliani and Mike Pillow and Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell were selling him, then maybe he can squeak by as like he actually believed this bullshit, and therefore he wasn't breaking the law when he was asking for those 11,781 votes in Georgia. That's the current scam. Now, what the Jan 6 committee is showing, and tomorrow, of course, we'll all watch, and I will be live tweeting that and then talking about it in the afternoon. What he needs to do is, you know, and the problem is that what the Jan 6 committee is doing is showing that he doesn't actually believe it, that this is sales. And so every speech he is giving, he's trying to reinforce that it was rigged and rigged and rigged, and he has to say this over and over again because his ego won't allow himself to admit in public again for the, I guess, 6th time, right? He's admitted 5 times already that he knows Biden won. That for the 6th time, it's just too much. It's a bridge too far. And if he's going to, you know, he's got to hang on to this fight, hang on to that angle that he does believe the lie to protect himself from January 6th committee's, DOJ referral and what's happening in Georgia. And so he's got to convince everyone that he's a complete dipshit, which in many ways we all don't have a problem with. Here's Dinesh telling us what the January 6th committee doesn't want us to know about January 6th. It actually happened on January 7th. If you're Australian, I'll believe. So this is, here I spell out what the January 6th committee doesn't want you to know about January 6th. Really, I wouldn't have gotten that from the title. All right, here we go.
January 6th hearings are January 6th hearings are pushing on.
They're pushing on, and the populace is, the needle is moving in polling towards convicting Trump. 6-point bump, and 1 in 5 Republicans now believe that Trump should be prosecuted for his part in Jan 6.
And as we know, these hearings aren't really a presentation.
Yes, they are. They are specifically a presentation
Of different points of view.
Oh, okay. No, you're right. It's a presentation of reality.
They're not a trial in any official sense of the term.
Yeah, they did that part, and they're still in part of the investigation, but the parts that they've settled on, the information that they have, they are showing.
There's no cross-examination. Evidence is presented selectively.
Well, that's when the DOJ comes in. This is just an investigative process. You ever notice that during an investigation, the would-be murderer's lawyer doesn't get to stand around the crime scene, tell people what drawers not to look in when the police are called to a crime scene.
And so they're pushing a particular narrative. And let's say
Are they? Oh, yes. That reality is more important than a fiction sold by a second-generation rich kid who's been a loser all his life.
Know nothing about January 6th.
No, they know nothing about it. They don't even know what month it happened in.
you're just watching this for the first time, you would get the idea that you've got this sort of massive violent mob of
yeah, you would. Yeah. Mostly from the video.
Of Trump supporters who break their way into the Capitol,
Well, no, some of them broke their way in. The rest of them just ran in afterwards.
storm the Capitol.
Right? Yeah, about 3,000 to 5,000 of them.
Would assume that they brought all kinds of weapons and arms into the Capitol.
They did.
Why? Because after all, they're launching an insurrection. They're trying to overthrow the government. How do you overthrow the government of the most powerful country in the world if you show up without even guns or knives or bombs? So the assumption...
Well, first of all, you sharpen sticks, and you do have guns. We've had our fifth conviction of someone bringing a gun in, including a dude who fucking lost his gun while they were banging down the door, while they were battering ramming the door. They also seized weapons from cops along the way. They brought bear spray. They brought a gallows. They were going to mob and overwhelm by volume of humans the people that were there, drag Mike Pence out and hang him. I guarantee that 1,000 people, once they had overwhelmed the 8 or so, Secret Service guys around Mike Pence, if they'd have managed to get their hands on him, they wouldn't have needed guns or knives or sticks to drag him out and hang him. He'd have been dead by the time they got him to the gallows because they would have beaten him to death. You get the feeling Dinesh is one of those assholes who watches like The Walking Dead, sees an army of zombies and goes, I don't see a single gun.
The assumption would be that all these guys came in, they were heavily armed. This was a kind of replay, if you will, of the Civil War. In fact, we've heard a lot of analogies.
No, you haven't heard an analogy. You said comparisons, the worst thing that happened in the Capitol since the Civil War. That the fact that a Confederate flag didn't even fly in the rotunda or in the Capitol itself during the Civil War.
January 6th and the Civil War. And then you would think that this Trump mob unleashed an orgy of violence that resulted in all these people dropping dead. Police officers who were killed, like Brian Sicknick. This, of course, was part of the narrative being pushed by the New York Times. This man was bludgeoned to death.
Again, hit in the head. Never mind the fact that... hold on one second. I'm going to get his name right. Michael Fanone was this guy who, by the way, Greg Kelly loves to shit on. This guy was tased repeatedly till he had a heart attack. They were trying to get his gun. He was saying, I have kids. And one of the other people there was like, don't do it. In the same way that Epps, Ray Epps, the guy they think is a FBI agent, whispered to the man who led the charge into the Capitol at one of the barriers, don't do it. The cops are just doing their jobs. And he was like, fuck that. And they just went ahead and did it. He basically, Dinesh wants you to think that they just rolled in there and gave everyone, they came with tickle feathers and massage oil.
He would also believe that all these other Capitol police officers died. In fact, there was some reports of like suicides in the immediate aftermath of January 6th. So it was like, these people are so traumatized, they actually took their own life. But in effect, their deaths were caused by the violence of January 6th. And so this is the picture that
you're not going to mention the girl who was stomped to death by maggots in the tunnel that people tried to give CPR to, and they dragged her to the very police that these assholes were trying to beat up to save her life, or the guy getting crushed in the door.
Democrats are trying to paint in a kind of comic twist. They're not
in a comic twist.
Now even trying to imply that this mob was trying to kill Mike Pence.
I beg your pardon, what?
Trying to imply that this mob was trying to kill Mike Pence. And I apologize a little bit for chuckling because I'm just thinking to myself, who would want to kill Mike Pence?
That's a great question. Let me see. Mm-hmm.
During the hearing, an extended...
Hold on one second. Let's see where we get in here.
Set of facts, not the fraudulent or inaccurate ones, which they were asked to previously certify. U.S. Bring out Pence! Bring out Pence!
Crowd chants, hang Mike Pence.
Yeah, I don't know where... That's hilarious, Dinesh. I don't know where anybody would get that fucking idea. They built a goddamn gallows. Again, who brought the wood? When are we going to get some... I need an answer on this. Jan 6 committee, really the only thing I really care about, because mainly I know all the shit that they're bringing up largely. Some of the Eastman emails are interesting and will definitely lead to that dude being disbarred, if not jailed. And I'm happy to hear about that. But who the fuck built the gallows? Yeah, they brought the bolts. They bought fucking tools. Where the fuck did it come from? They literally built a fucking gallows. What was that again, Dinesh? Look at this dipshit. Fucking hell.
Was trying to kill Mike Pence. And I apologize a little bit for chuckling because I'm just thinking to myself, who would want to kill Mike Pence? And you see a picture, by the way, and the picture itself undercuts the idea because you've got Mike Pence's wife literally drawing a curtain. Now, quite frankly, if you're under direct threat of your life, you're not going to be just, let's draw the curtains. And Mike...
By the way, they're showing the room that they were hiding in. And his wife drew the curtains because they were not far from where these fuckers were, and they were afraid that they would message where they were. How fucking... Oh, my God. I mean, we've all seen 2,000 Mules, so we know how dumb this idiot is. God damn, this is awful. Like, this is just weak. This is what the January 6th committee doesn't want you to know about Jan 6? Dude, what the... What? We're watching There's a huge crowd of maggots. You can see their fucking MAGA hats. They're all yelling, hang Mike Pence. It's a giant refrain. It's not like they're the two BLM and Antifa guys who snuck in or a couple of FBI provocateurs. The whole fucking crowd is yelling, hang Mike Pence.
Pence is completely unruffled. He's not even looking at the curtain. He's chatting with some other guy who's sitting in the office. So he appears...
Yeah, he's chatting. They're just chit-chatting while they're screaming, hang Mike Pence.
Unperturbed. So what the January 6th committee has to do is they have to rely on massive manipulation of video.
Jesus Christ. Dude, you are centering on a still shot of Karen Pence shutting the fucking curtain because she's worried they'll be able to see him. Him sitting there trying to make a decision about his next steps. And he refused to leave the building because on two fronts, he thought Trump would order his driver not to bring him back. I mean, at a certain point, we just have to understand that Dinesh just doesn't see reality. He's incapable of it. Like, he's just constantly wearing shit-covered glasses.
Manipulation of photographs, one-sided hammering, with the media, of course, in that sense, then.
Yeah, one-sided hammering of the, like, they're like, they really keep hammering this note of.
Crowd.
Yeah, they keep doing the whole hang Mike Pence, that one-sided hammering.
Amplifying what's being said.
Well, I mean, you know what amplifies what's being said is a giant crowd screaming it.
Complete suppression of skeptical points of view, like
skeptical. Dude, I mean, maybe they're saying it like in the British colloquialism. Oh, hang the vicar. I don't even need to hear about it.
Hey, let's take a good look at Mike Pence. Does he look scared to you?
He didn't know they were yelling that. He heard an attack, but he didn't find out till later that that's what they were yelling, dipshit. He couldn't see the fucking gallows from where he was. He was taken to a secure location by the Secret fucking Service.
You know, so all of
So, anyways, this whole
this is going on, and Julie.
there's a lot of saliva in this. I'm just saying, Dinesh. Is this what happens when you're just bullshitting behind the 8 ball? You get a big glob of something in there, and
Kelly has an excellent article. It's called January 6th for Non-Dummies.
Oh, that's adorable.
When she just reminds us of a couple of key
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Bullshit.
facts. Number one, no one, and I repeat, no one, carried firearms into the building.
I'm sorry, 1 second. Well, I'll just give you the whole list. This is the Trace is doing a running tally of everybody who was involved in the mass of people that day and the day before. They start with the people who were busted just having guns nearby. Enrique Tarrio was arrested at a DC hotel on the 4th for burning a Black Lives Matter flag he stole from a black church last month. The officer serving the warrant found him in possession of 2 AR-15 M4 compatible 30-round magazines branded with the Proud Boys insignia. That he was bringing ammo for somebody else who had guns. The guns had already been placed in vehicles near the Capitol so that if Trump called for the Insurrection Act and then martial law, they would act as his foot soldiers. That's the if you've been watching Jan 6, that's the direction that at least the Proud Boys and whomever their contact in the White House thought it would go. Let's see. Harlan Bowen, January 5th, was arrested with a Glock 23 handgun and a large capacity magazine holding 13 rounds, 3 rounds over the legal limit in D.C. That's adorable. Gronick, North Carolina, arrested half a mile from the Capitol on Jan 5th. They were basically doing a sweep the days before. Here you go. Was arrested a few blocks from the White House on January 6th. Then charged with carrying a pistol without a license, possession of a large capacity magazine, possession of unregistered ammunition. Prosecutors later dropped the charges. Adorable, because it's D.C. 33 of Maryland was arrested outside U.S. Capitol Visitor Center an hour and a half after curfew on the evening of January 6th. Noticed a bulge in his pants, discovered a 9mm Taurus handgun, 12 rounds, 2 more than the legal limit, and another magazine holding 12 rounds. He was in and out of there. Lonnie Leroy Kaufman, 70 of Alabama, was arrested on the evening of January 6th by a Capitol Police officer, came upon his truck and found an assault-style rifle, a shotgun, 3 handguns, a large capacity magazine, and components for 11 Molotov cocktails. That guy was fun. Police also found a handwritten note with the name of a Muslim House representative on it. Grant McGurk of Georgia was arrested on January 6th by a Capitol Police officer, came upon his truck a block away from the Capitol and found a Ruger 380, 3 loaded 6-round magazines, 12 loose rounds. Moore carried a license from his home state, but the handgun was not registered in D.C. He's charged with carrying a pistol without a license. Julian Snell, arrested a few blocks from the White House on January 6th by a Metropolitan Police Department officer charged with carrying a pistol without a license. Arrested for a few blocks from the White House. Colorado, let's see, none of them were arrested in the actual Capitol because they were just found to have carried it later. Charged with disorderly conduct on restricted grounds, unlawful. Based on social media posts and messages, FBI agents alleged that Fisher was at the Capitol on January 6th and in possession of multiple firearms while in D.C. At his arraignment, prosecutors said he was found with a shotgun, a semi-automatic rifle, a handgun, and more than 1,000 rounds of ammunition upon his arrest, and said more charges could be coming soon. The guns were cited by the judge in his decision to deny Fisher bail. He's one of the people who's in the D.C. jail. Of California, arrested July 20th, 2021, charged with entering and remaining in a restricted building and on grounds. That's the Capitol. Prosecutors say Abraham, a special agent with the Drug Enforcement Administration, entered the Capitol grounds after rioters breached the barricades and showed off his badge and gun to rioters, posing for photos. He was off duty at the time. 56 of Indiana was arrested in Shelbyville on November, charged with unlawfully carrying a firearm on Capitol grounds, civil disorder, and assaulting, resisting, and impeding officers with a dangerous weapon. According to a criminal complaint, a Taurus revolver loaded with 3 shotgun shells and 2 hollow point bullets fell from Mazza's waistband during a physical altercation with police officers at the Capitol on January 6th. He fled with the crowd. That's where they went inside. That's when they were knocking the doors back. And that's just so far. This is going to be the whole thing. Like, and again, a bunch of people just were never patted down, never arrested, they never touched their backpack. They
It's
just,
supposed to be an armed insurrection. Pelosi is actually
also, arms don't just mean guns. You can be armed with bayonets. You can be armed with knives. You can be armed with sharpened flagpoles and bear spray.
called it an armed insurrection.
And that was the case. They literally were stacking guns nearby.
How do you do an armed insurrection without arms? How do you storm a building without arms?
By overwhelming police officers and having those police officers so physically overwhelmed that if they even fired a shot, the crowd itself would overwhelm and kill them, and it would escalate the violence.
Your what? With your fists?
Yes, with your fists.
With your nose? So 18 months later, no one has been charged with carrying a firearm into the building on January 6th.
Carrying a firearm because the dude dropped his gun coming in the mass of people.
Now, there are 4 guys who were charged with possessing or carrying a firearm, but that's outside the Capitol.
Yeah, because nobody was being arrested in the Capitol. Nobody was cuffed up. They just cleared the building.
That's like on the grounds.
Right. Because they pushed everybody out of the building so they could proceed with counting the votes.
Off the Capitol.
And pepper spray or mace and knives and blunt weapons count as arms.
Capitol, including one man who was arrested the evening after the protest.
With stacked guns in their hotel room like fucking Vegas, Mandalay Bay.
Ended. Now, no police officers died on January 6th.
Yeah, no. They none of them died, so the injuries will just look past.
As a result of the protest. The Sicknick thing has been completely exposed as a fraud. The New York Times itself retracted it.
The District of Columbia Chief Medical Examiner found that Sicknick had died from a stroke, classifying his death as natural, and additionally commented that all that transpired played a role in his condition. Meaning that the injuries he sustained and the physical trauma and perhaps the adrenaline trauma to his body, the shock, the trauma of the day contributed to the stroke happening. All that transpired played a role in his condition. That's what they're referencing January 6th. Let's see. Oops, hold on. There's an ad coming up. Died from strokes. The chief medical examiner said in a report summary citing acute brainstem and cerebral infarcts due to acute basilar artery thrombosis. In an interview with the Washington Post, the chief medical examiner, Francisco Diaz, said Sicknick suffered 2 strokes at the base of his brainstem caused by a clot in an artery. Approximately 2:20 p.m. on January 6th, Sicknick was sprayed with a chemical substance. Oops, hold on. Let's see. Despite being sprayed with a chemical substance, Sicknick's manner of death was determined to be natural, the medical examiner's office said. In the interview with the Post, Diaz said the autopsy found no evidence of internal or external injuries or of an allergic reaction to the chemical substance, but did say all that transpired played a role in his condition. Basically, it's like if you have an aneurysm and it's floating around, but the cause of the aneurysm was that, it burst due to trauma.
The medical examiner said, no, this guy died of natural causes.
Yes. Stemming from the extreme nature of the day he had at the Capitol.
And as for the policeman who committed suicide, who knows why they did that? I mean, policemen obviously generally operate under a lot of stress. Apparently, there were 2 Capitol police officers who committed suicide in the days following, and 2 D.C. officers months later.
Yeah, notice how they're not Seth riching these guys.
But there's no proof that any of these suicides was connected in any way with the events of that day. That's just pure speculation. Now,
yes, it's pure speculation that they're unrelated to what happened in those days.
The one issue that the January 6th committee does not want to go even near
is why. Again, look, we know the dude thought his wife was cheating and killed the dude from work he thought she was cheating with. Turns out she wasn't cheating, but so we think he should get off for murder because he thought his wife was cheating. That's going to be the argument. He's going to pivot to 2,000 Mules and the Big Lie. What do you think?
Is the role of the FBI in orchestrating.
Oh, okay. No, we're going straight to it was all set up that the people yelling "Hang Mike Pence" were being conducted like an orchestra.
January 6th. Ted Cruz directly put this question to the FBI. And the FBI representative was extremely cagey.
Extremely cagey. Not as cagey as the people who were trying to put a bullet in Nancy Pelosi's brain later on at their hearing.
This is Jill Sanborn, the FBI counterterrorism chief. She was asked, did the FBI play a role? I can't say. Did the FBI egg anyone on? Can't say. Did the FBI orchestrate it? Can't say.
Hold on, wait.
Was extremely to the FBI, and the FBI representative was extremely cagey. This is Jill Sanborn, the FBI counterterrorism chief. She was asked, did the FBI play a role?
All right, let's see. FBI Jan 6. Let's see. The video.
I will, thank you.
This is how many agents were confidential informants during the January 6th riot. This is, I think, the section she's talking about.
Thank you, Senator Blumenthal. Senator Cruz.
This is January 11th. This is just 5 days after this shit happened.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Olson,
5 days after this, Ted Cruz is running interference for his part in holding up the proceedings to give the Proud Boys and the rioters time to reach the Capitol.
How many people have been charged with crimes of violence in connection with the events on January 6th?
This is, by the way, on the 11th. Crimes of violence.
Senator, I'm not sure exactly how many have been charged with crimes of violence. I know that there are many.
Okay, how many have been charged with nonviolent crimes?
How many have been charged with nonviolent crimes? You know, they were just milling about. And here's what I want to know, Ted. Is it a violent crime to steal a laptop from the speaker's office, and you got access to it by other people beating cops and knocking down doors and busting in windows?
I don't have the numbers of people charged, whether at the state or federal level. I know that.
Okay, how many people are currently incarcerated concerning the events of January 6th?
I don't know the number of people incarcerated. Again, I know that I
how
do
many
have...
Okay, let me ask you that. Look, with limited time, so I don't want you to filibuster. You either know the answer.
He's filibustering. He's like, it's 5 days ago. We're still looking for a bunch of these fuckers. We're sifting through hundreds of thousands of hours of video of these assholes filming themselves. And again, this is the 11th.
You don't. How many people have been placed in solitary confinement concerning the events of January 6th?
None. No one is placed in solitary confinement because they were part of January 6th. It's the spitting on guards and calling them baby killers and refusing to get vaccinated or refusing to wear a mask and shit like that at that point that made you end up in solitary.
6th.
I don't have any information about that, Senator.
You know,
and by the way, that's a local jail question.
Mr. Olson, I will say it was sad. Senator Lee just asked you about this.
Do you know the numbers? Is it a number that can be known? Is it a referential number that will rise or fall according to your opinion about this? Or are you, I mean, this was just some stacking.
In June of 2021, Senator Lee and I and two...
In June of 2021, obviously important to what happened on January 6th.
Other senators sent a letter to the Department of Justice asking these questions, asking about the differential prosecutions. Let me ask you.
Okay, this is January 11th of this year. So he sent one last year, June of 2021, asking these questions.
2020, Black Lives Matter and Antifa.
All right, again, The comparison between these are city jurisdictions, unless the people from BLM or Antifa are seen to have crossed federal lines. It is none of the fucking federal government's business. This is state crime. These are questions for the AGs or the DAs of these states and cities. And any belief that they aren't is federal overreach, according to Republicans.
Riots all across the country. There were over 700 police officers injured by Black Lives Matter and Antifa riots. How many people have been charged with crimes of violence concerning those riots all across the country?
Again, he wouldn't know because those are charged by state police unless they cross the line and they're communicating, which there was no sign that they were, especially when it came to, like, BLM wasn't the hinge point of the violence. BLM was arranging the protests, but the riots popping off from those things were locally based. They were people from the community, with rare exception. And even then, not a coordinated effort, just hunting down individuals who were driving around the place. You could argue that Gage Grosskreutz, who Rittenhouse shot in the bicep, that dude was traveling around. But he wasn't aligned with a particular group in a way that the FBI would know about.
I don't have information on how many. I would say, hundreds of people have been charged, as Ms. Sanborn.
You would say, but you don't know.
You would say, but you don't know. That's because they're charged by the state, fucko. It's not his jurisdiction.
When we asked you why the Biden Department of Justice has such wildly disparate standards going after January 6th.
The Capitol is a federal building. Target in Minneapolis is not. The Capitol rioters, directed by the president that day, at that time, to go to the fucking Capitol is a distinct action against the federal fucking building. Rioters burning down stores or cars is wholly different. They're not in the same way that it's not there's no federal investigation when the Celtics win and people burn cars and turn them over because they're happy about a basketball game.
Targeting some people who committed crimes of violence, and anyone who commits crimes of violence should be prosecuted, but also targeting a lot of nonviolent individuals.
Yeah, who were part of a mob that trespassed into the Capitol using violence. You don't have to beat anybody up or stomp anyone to death or try to kill them if the people in front of you have already taken care of that. If you're just there to hang the dude you never got access to.
We asked you, why is it that you won't target the rioters and terrorists?
They do. Jesus Christ, this is lazy on his part. Hold on. Let's see. FBI. Let's see. Let's just put let's just go. Let's do one of their favorites. Let's do Portland. This is August 27th, 2020, 2021. Let's go December. Wall Street Journal, police and raise question. Portland protest case show feds arrest Capitol riots. Let's see. I gotta find a Portland rioters. Let's see. Portland. Let's see. This obviously isn't the latest. Let's see. District of Oregon, U.S. Attorney's District of Oregon. Rioters. Whoops. I can do that. Hold on. Dink, dink. Let's hear. Here's just, this is Portland. 74 people facing federal charges for crimes committed during Portland demonstrations. Charges include assaulting federal officers, arson, failing to obey lawful orders, and damaging federal property. These would be the ones that would be covered by the feds. The rest of it is covered by local prosecutors, state of Oregon or Portland city officials. Let's see. Portland arrests rioters. Let's just do that. Portland police knowledge George Floyd protests in Portland protests. Okay, here you go. This guy. Here we go. Portland protests arrests by the numbers through February 2021. Let's see. Portland, as protest-related vandalism continues in Portland, the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office said they're continuing to prosecute criminal cases that involve property destruction and physical violence over the past year. Between May 28, 2020 and February 26, 2021, the DA's office, which this would not be part of, and this is why I can't answer this question, because the federal ones are the only ones that cross borders. Most of these things were internal. DA's office said they received 294 civil unrest demonstration-related cases that fall into 4 categories. Arson burning, right? As opposed to just burning. Person crimes, as opposed to robot crimes, I suppose. Property crimes, and weapons crimes. Obviously, person crimes are against a human being. These 4 categories account for only 20% of all the arrests. So there's another 62% of arrests that came because of other stuff besides arson, burning, person crimes, property crimes, and weapons crimes. Data shows the breakdown between charges filed and sent back to the police for a follow-up. Arson, burning, 54% of them were charged, 7% were sent back. Person crimes, 37% were charged, 16% were sent back, meaning we need more evidence. Property crimes, 51% charged, 17% sent back. Weapons crimes, 62% charged, 6% sent back. Person crime cases, 174 cases that resulted from demonstration or civil unrest have been referred between May 28, 2020 and February 26, 2021. 65 of the 174, 37%, have been charged. 29 of the 174, 16%, have been referred back to law enforcement for a follow-up. Property crimes, 106 cases resulted from demonstration have been charged. 54% of the 106 have been charged. 18 of the 106, 17% have been sent back for follow-up. Arson, 7 of the 13 have been charged. There were 13 cases. 1 of the 13 was sent back for a follow-up. 32 cases from weapons crimes. 20 of the 32 have been charged. 2 of the 32 have been sent back for follow-up. This week, PPB detained about 100 people briefly and arrested 14 during vandalism in Northwest Portland. Of those 14, 10 were cited, 3 cases went to the DA, and 2 people were charged. The DA's office said they would review each case but declined to be more specific. The issue of mass detention by police to identify individuals and to investigate a potential crime may result in future litigation. As some of the cases from Friday night involved mass detention, it is prudent that we not comment any further. Basically, they run out of space because these groups are so big. And the rest of the time, it makes no sense for Portland to have like giant holding centers to process these folks. They would need like enough ankle bracelets for half the city. The community is really clear on the fact that these are no longer protests. They are just riots. There is no real gold in them, and it's just criminal destruction. Rose City Downtown Collective co-founder Vanessa Sturgeon said, the Downtown Collective, which is clearly a left-leaning group. At this point, people are heartened that the police have been able to find an effective tool to deal with criminal behavior, and now it'll just be up to the district attorney's office to hold people accountable through prosecution. We're told that many businesses within the district have taken to Schmidt, stressing the need to hold people accountable for destruction, especially as we see the resurgence of vandals congregating overnight once again. This is as of February, right? March 17th, 2021. This is this date in here. That's the main gathering point of that. So that's the numbers in Portland by itself. So, a couple hundred people charged with the serious crime. Other people cited and have to go to court about that stuff and released. And then they get cited a second or third time. Then they're getting referred again.
Who firebomb cities across this country.
They firebombed cities across this country. No, actually, a small percentage of them, quote unquote, firebombed cities. And of those where they were able to bring cases, 36 out of the 42 or so that were charged ended up getting cited, going to jail.
We got from the Department of Justice
is that these are state and local crimes.
Was shameful. On October 22nd, you came back and said, quote, "The department has dedicated investigative and prosecutorial resources commensurate with the significance of these events." By significance, I guess it means the political benefit to the Biden White House.
Uh-huh.
And I will tell you, there are a great many Americans who are understandably deeply concerned about the politicization of the Department of Justice under President Joe Biden. It is.
Why? Because you believe the United States Capitol is a target.
It's been 218.
And I mean a Target store, a Target.
Days since we sent you that letter. DOJ refused to answer the letter today when Senator Lee and I asked you about it. Your answer to every damn question is, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. You're under oath.
Yeah, he doesn't know. Because, again, most of these things they're calling for are state crimes.
May believe at the Department of Justice that you are unaccountable to the American people, but that is not the case.
Yeah, that's what we're all thinking.
The wildly disparate standards are unacceptable. Ms. Sandberg, I want to turn to the FBI.
And this is the woman that, the Jan 6 part of it, he's going to bring this, the part that Dinesh was referencing, I think.
How many FBI agents or confidential informants actively
or confidential informants? So let's say you're the FBI and you have ongoing investigations into groups like the Proud Boys and the 3 Percenters and Roger Stone and all those crowds, and you have people in field. And they know that, like, that 3 of them have been expelled or out or been pulled off, and that there's 3 dudes who are still engaged with some of them and 6 other people who are involved in other parts of the groups, and they're feeding intel because these groups are still domestic terror groups. Why don't you just tell us can you tell us how many FBI agents were involved and are now involved, so these guys can go, yeah, it was Charlie the whole time, and that guy Jake, I didn't believe his bullshit at one point.
Participated in the events of January 6th.
Sir, I'm sure you can appreciate that I can't go into the specifics of sources and methods.
Did any FBI agents or confidential informants actively participate in the events of January 6th?
Or confidential informants. Can you just tell me that who snitched? Were there any snitches? Can we go on a snitch hunt right now? And can you tell me that, a number so that even if they're snitches, I can assume they're FBI agents, so we can use that number to push back on the idea that it wasn't a parade of maggots attacking the Capitol?
Yes or no?
Yes or no?
Sir, I can't answer that.
Did any FBI agents or
Again, she's not going to answer it yes or no.
confidential informants commit crimes of violence on January 6th?
I can't answer that, sir.
Did any FBI agent...
Did any confidential... Well, because people have since turned. Are they a CI now? Because they turned and they were released on bail, for example? Same shit.
Agents or FBI informants actively encourage and incite...
He means Ray Epps.
...crimes of violence on January 6th.
And by the way, or confidential informants. And again, this reads into current... who were confidential informants. I mean, you could word this in a way that extricates current confidential informants and says you can answer this out of public if we need to discuss this for their safety and the safety of others. But he, notice how he's playing fast and loose with both of these categories.
Sir, I can't answer that.
She's just not answering any questions on methods.
Ms. Sadburn, who is Ray Epps?
Yeah, right. We're back to Ray Epps.
I'm aware of the individual, sir. I don't have the specific background to him.
Well, there are a lot of people who are understandably very concerned about Mr. Epps.
Yes, they're very concerned about Mr. Ray Epps. He walked up to one of the Proud Boys who instigated the violence and told him to knock it off. This is, like we've been through, and this is fucking January 11th of this fucking year. This asshole. Hold on. Ray Epps told not to. There we go. Yeah, here you go. This is, when did this come out? Okay. So, prominent Republicans, including former President Donald J. Trump, prominent waistlines, have for months promoted a conspiracy theory that an Arizona man named Ray Epps is a federal informant who helped to instigate the attack on the Capitol on January 6th. Because, look, maggots are stupid. If you tell them to fetch, they fetch. If you tell them to jump, they say how high. And if you tell them to attack the Capitol, they won't go, I'm sorry, as a good American who wants to make America great again, it doesn't involve me storming the breach, killing or stomping, my cops or my own friends and taking a shit in the rotunda. No. The claims made in congressional hearing rooms on Fox News and Mr. Trump's political rallies have largely been based on a video taken just before the violence erupted at the Capitol, showing Mr. Epps at a barricade outside the building, whispering into the ear of a man named Ryan Samsel. We've talked about this before. Within moments of the brief exchange, Mr. Samsel, a Pennsylvania barber, can be seen moving forward and confronting the police in what amounted to be a tipping point of the riot. Despite lacking proof of their claims, many Republicans have surmised that Mr. Epps instructed Mr. Samsel, as a hypnotist, to antagonize the officers. They have also pushed the notion that because Mr. Epps has not been arrested, he must have been working for the government. But for more than a year, well before the name Ray Epps was widely known in right-wing circles, federal authorities have had information from both him and Mr. Samsel. This includes, and this means Cruz has had access to this. All these assholes have had access, suggesting that he was not a government agent and did not encourage the younger man to engage with the police that day. Just 2 days after the attack, when Epps saw himself on a list of suspects from January 6th, he called an FBI tip line, which makes him, I guess, a CI now, and told investigators he tried to calm Mr. Samsel down when they spoke, according to 3 people who have heard a recording of the call. Mr. Epps went on to say that he explained to Mr. Samsel that the police outside were merely doing their jobs, the people said. Then in late January of last year, in an interview with the FBI, Mr. Samsel said much the same thing, telling investigators that a man he did not know came up to him at the barricades and suggested he relax. According to the recording of the interview obtained by the New York Times, he came up to me and he said, dude. His entire words were, relax, the cops are doing their job, Mr. Samsel said, which apparently was code, and Mr. Samsel knew the code and knew it was time to attack. Whatever you do, don't say, dude, relax, the cops are just doing their job to a maggot. It sends them into a rage like a red cape to a bull.
On the night of January 5th, 2021, Epps,
by the way, this fucker knew this at this time,
wandered around the crowd that had gathered, and there's video out there of him chanting, tomorrow, we need to get into the Capitol, into the Capitol. This was
crowd's response to Epps. Fed. Right.
Strange behavior, so strange that the crowd began chanting, fed.
Yeah, because they're paranoid assholes.
Fed.
So what? That same crowd the next day was chanting, hang Mike Pence. Are we assuming the same level of astute logical thinking from them?
Ms. Sanborn, was Ray Epps a Fed?
Sir, I cannot answer that question.
The next day, on January 6th.
She can't answer yes or no in any of these questions. That's how it works. That's the process.
Mr. Epps is seen whispering to a person, and 5 seconds later, 5 seconds after he's whispering to a person, that same person begins to forcibly tear down the
He's the maggot whisperer.
Barricades.
Yes, he says something that Caesar says you never whisper to a dog.
Did Mr. Epps urge them to tear down the barricades?
No.
Sir, similar to the other answers, I cannot answer that.
Shortly thereafter, the FBI put out a public post.
She can't say what he said or what he didn't say because there's an investigation against Samsel. The dude hasn't gone through his trial yet.
Seeking information on individuals connected with violent crimes on January 6th. Among those individuals, in the bottom there, is Mr. Epps. The FBI publicly asked for information, offering cash rewards leading to information leading to the arrest.
Yeah, that's why he called in and said, I told the guy not to do it.
This was posted, and then
the pictures from the night before were part of it.
Later, magically, Mr. Epps disappeared.
Not magically. He called. He saw his fucking face on the news.
From the public posting. According to public records, Mr. Epps has not been charged with anything. No one's explained why a person videoed urging people to go.
Yeah, you can't get arrested for urging people if you have no authority to urge said people. Again, these are the people who want cancel culture to be, they're the book-burning anti-cancel culture people who are worried about free speech. But something the dude whispered, which both men say was, he told me not to do it.
Go to the Capitol.
This is just lazy.
Person whose conduct was so suspect, the crowd believed he was a Fed.
And yet the next day
would magically disappear from the list of people the FBI was looking at.
Or they had cleared him, but they can't say that they cleared him because the other dude's case is still ongoing, and it's part of that.
Ms. Sandburn, a lot of Americans are concerned.
A lot. And by a lot, I mean fewer than the people who are concerned that every time I go to Mexico, the electrical grid in Texas fails.
That the federal government deliberately encouraged illegal and violent conduct on January 6th.
Yeah. Using weaponized gullibility on the part of maggots.
My question to you, and this is not an ordinary law enforcement question, this is a question of public accountability.
Is it?
Did federal agents or those in service of federal agents,
those in service now or before,
actively encourage violent and criminal conduct on January 6th?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
Oh, okay. Well, shit. Not to my knowledge. There you go. There's a definite answer at the end of it. Somebody basically said, you're allowed to say, like, that's not giving away, tactics or anything like that. So no.
Thank you.
Right. That could have ended the conversation. Somebody from the legal end of the SBI probably could have leaned over and said, you could say not to my knowledge earlier in it and shut him down. But this let him drag this bullshit on. And again, do you think Dinesh, and we'll finish up with this little piece here, do you think Dinesh is going to reference her not to my knowledge thing about them engaging in any kind of, and she would know. She would know. And she's under oath. So if she says not to my knowledge, she knows a lot of what they've been investigating this entire time. So she would know if there were people. The parts where she goes, I can't talk about, part of it was ongoing investigations into Samsel, was why she can't talk about Epps.
I can't say. Did the FBI egg anyone on? Can't say. Did the FBI orchestrate it? Can't say.
That wasn't one of the questions. I love how, just make up new questions. Did the FBI orchestrate it? I'm guessing that if Ted Cruz had asked anyone at the FBI, did the FBI orchestrate January 6th? The question would have been no.
Did the FBI itself use violence in order to sort of increase the total sum of violence that occurred that day?
Yeah, to push it over the top. That extra 2 to 3%, that little, that nitrous flick that really sends the engine running.
Can't say. So think of it. The FBI denials here are very telling.
No, they're not. They don't want to talk about ongoing cases or tactics in general, especially when it comes to current CIs who may have been even processed through stuff and are back out in these domestic violence groups getting street cred because they kept their mouth shut and all that kind of stuff. I mean, how many fucking cop shows do we need to watch to know at least partially how this stuff works? Push-ups? Oh, somebody asked for push-ups? Okay.
In a hearing, think of it. The FBI is part of the...
I don't know where my other camera is. Hold on. I'll have to set up a shot.
Executive branch, they're subject to congressional oversight. And the fact that they can't say...
They can't say because they will get CIs killed by the maniacs that still pledge allegiance to Trump.
Tells you that the answer is yes. Because if the answer is no, they would have been like, no, the FBI had no role.
No, it isn't. If the answer is no, then the guys would go, oh, we can speak freely to anybody. No, we don't have to worry about what we're saying. We can move ahead, even if it's and again, you wouldn't want to lie under oath in that regard and let those guys off the hook. It's good for those guys to think there might be those among them that might snitch. Just kidding. I just want to spend my bits. Okay, thanks, H2O Gods.
Oh, what's
I will. I promise on my honor to do the 10 push-ups when the show's done.
We didn't orchestrate.
And I'll even elevate my feet.
This. No, FBI agents would never use violence and start smashing windows themselves.
We're going into 2,000 Mules territory, aren't we, Dinesh? Are you going to say that the Proud Boys and the MAGA rioters that smash windows are deep state FBI, even though they're just riding it out in a DC jail?
So all of this is really telling. And then the other big, you may say, elephant in the room, the FBI's role in the Whitmer kidnapping plot, the transfer of Stephen D'Antonio, who had orchestrated that from the FBI. Remember that there were 2 defendants who were set free.
Oh my gosh.
By a jury
who found them too stupid to carry it out.
Acquitted them. Said,
of being morons.
No, this wasn't their fault. This was the FBI's fault. And that same guy who ran that operation has been then transferred to DC in mid-October of 2020. And his office is the lead investigatory agency in the Justice Department's prosecution of more than 800 Americans now charged for their involvement in January 6th.
Okay, so a little over 800 out of somewhere in the order of 3,000 to 5,000 people who stormed the Capitol grounds that day. So I guess the primary question is, and this is what I run like, and this is going to, Daily Co's. This is hold on one second. Okay. Has the same issue I have. Who built the gallows? Who exactly built the gallows? That is one question that I hope the January 6th committee is investigating, because I have spent my life in theater and know that is not an easy spur of the moment thing to erect a gallows complete with hanging noose in front of the U.S. Capitol building. Agreed. So someone had a plan to do that. They had specifications at the ready. They went to Home Depot, purchased the supplies they needed to erect a platform. Hang a noose from it. Not easy to make a noose. Have you ever tried it just such a way so you make an ominous photograph? Asking you, Mr. Former V-POTUS Mike Pence, since it was clearly linked to the Hang Mike Pence chant, are you wondering who purchased the materials, built the platform, hung the noose, took a picture? This had to be planned in advance. So who all was involved in planning and execution this set piece for destroying American democracy? Jan 6 committee, get the Home Depot receipts while you're at it. I agree. Who wrote that? Super Simeon wrote that as a community post at Daily Co's. That has been sticking in my fucking craw. This just says, Capitol mob built gallows and chanted "Hang Mike Pence." Whoops, hold on, get back up here. This guy right here. Capitol mob built gallows and chanted "Hang Mike Pence." I don't know. My screen sticks to the. Okay, there we go. They were never a natural fit, the straight-laced evangelical and brash reality TV star, but for more than 4 years, Trump and Pence made their marriage of political convenience work. Now, in the last days of the administration, each is feeling betrayed by the other. It's part of the fallout from the extraordinary 24-hour stretch in which Pence openly defied Trump. Trump unleashed his fury on the vice president, and a mob of violent supporters, incensed by Trump's rhetoric, stormed the Capitol building and tried to halt the peaceful transfer of power. Pretty raw right now. Pence's decision to advise that he was taking some of the administration's high-pressure project. Under normal circumstances, the vote tallying procedure and a bizarre interpretation of the law, they argue, okay, blah, blah, blah. Not long after Trump took the stage in front of his supporters at the Stop the Steal rally. If Mike Pence does the right thing, we win the election. But Trump already knew what Pence intended, and as Trump spoke, Pence released a letter to Congress laying out his conclusion the vice president cannot claim unilateral authority to reject states' electoral votes. Not long after that, they arrived at the Capitol, where they overwhelmed police, smashed windows. Trump did not call back the thing. Trump supporters hang Mike Pence at the Capitol building. Later, members of the mob outside were chanting this for allies of Pence. Where's the part about how the dynamic? Okay, they don't even say. God damn it. Who built the goddamn gallows? That's what we need to know. That's info number one. There's got to be video out there of these fuckers building this thing. Yeah, they're yelling bring them out, bring out Mike Pence, bring them out.